How's everybody doing? We're almost there. We saved the best for last, trust me. And by that, I don't mean me. So there's a chair in headquarters, and it's comfortable, and it's white, not unlike these. And on the chair are all these quotes from our founder. And just great quotes, like make the impossible possible, which you guys have probably heard. My favorite one is, that's not the question you meant to ask, which I use it a lot, but I give credit to our founder, because just in case. And a source for a lot of these quotes is something that you're about to see in a moment. And this is it's a tradition at MarkLogic. It's the Fireside chat with our founder. And if you thought the Second City improv was entertaining, you've got to see this, because it is true improv, and it really is, but it is enriching in so many ways. You do learn a lot, and you get a peek into the future. And just listening to somebody who founded a company, who has all the perspectives for the company's ups and downs across all the industries, that is a wealth of information, and it is really entertaining. And joining him this year will be another member of our executive staff, our EVP of products. So just let them do their thing. They're going to bounce off each other. So with that, I'd like to welcome to the stage two people: our founder and chief architect, Christopher Lindblad, and our EVP of products, Joe Pasqua.
All right.
I know. What do I do now?
So actually, before we get started, I've got a few things I want to ask all of you. The first one, I'm going to give you a minute to think about, and then I'm going to come back to it. I want you to think about what is the most surprising thing that you've learned here over the past couple of days. And I'll come back and then ask you to raise your hands, and I'll point to somebody, and you can shout it out. So for me, just so you know, the most surprising thing I learned is the folks at Second City know what it's like to be an Oracle customer. That blew me away. That was very cool. So couple of questions. First of all, who's attending the workshops tomorrow? Wow, we're going to fit you all into those workshops. That's amazing. So I've been told that there are a couple of spots open. So if you haven't registered for a workshop and you want to be in one of the workshops, make sure you go out, go to the registration desk, talk to Tanya or Carolyn, and see if you can get one of those spots. Now, I heard that a couple of hours ago, so I'm not sure whether there are any still there. But if you want to be in there, make sure you go by the desk. Okay, a couple other quick questions. Who heard of entity services during this conference? Who went to a talk that included entity services? Okay, keep your hands up if you feel like you know what it is, and you know what it does, and you know how you'll be able to use it. Cool. Justin, I'm glad you know. Justin's the product manager for entity services, so that's very reassuring.
Yes.
What about, did any of you go to a session that talked about element level security and redaction? Okay. How many people feel like you've got a use case for one or more of those technologies within your organization? Yeah, I thought so. Element level security and redaction, I got to tell you, from the moment we started talking about those technologies and we started conceiving of what they would be, we've had a lot of great feedback and a lot of resonance from our customers about, yeah, this is solving a problem that we need to get solved. So I think what I just saw in the show of hands is corroborating that. And how about Ops Director? Did everybody get to see the demo of Ops Director? Okay, good. If you didn't get to see the demo, make sure you get to see it. Ops Director and Kaio Milani, who's the product manager for that, is sitting there, and Norm Walsh, who's a lead engineer, is around here somewhere. Great technology. This is really foundational technology, something that we're going to keep building on over the course of even the next few releases. It's going to be a great tool for us and for you. Okay, so let me come back. What's the most surprising thing you learned over the past few days at MarkLogic World? And if nobody raises their hand, I'm going to pick somebody at random. Okay, there we've got somebody back there.
Apparently you guys teach sense of humor. Because I've never seen so many stand-up comedians. And I'm not talking about Second City.
Very good. All right. Anybody else? What else was surprising that you learned while you're here at the conference? Okay, everybody's looking at their shoes.
Yeah.
Okay, Kaio, I'll pick on you since you're one of us.
One surprise is that a lot of people are interested in features of security they really are interested in use. The same for ops director, everyone's waiting to use the tools.
Great.
Surprise.
Okay. All right. So with that, I just wanted to get a little feedback on what you saw at the conference, and now we'll jump into this conversation with Chris. And I don't know why it's a fireside chat. It's more like a lakeside chat, but we want to involve you.
Joe has a drone. This is a drone
Oh,
picture.
yes, this is a drone view. Yeah,
That's as soon as
I'd be arrested for taking that. So we're going to include you in the conversation. So as I said, make sure you're thinking of the questions that you want to ask, and I'll start with a few for Chris. And I really want to start by talking about the future in a couple of different areas. Yeah. And the first is hardware evolution. So Intel's a great partner of ours. They're making strides every year in technology. What do you see coming down the pike that's really going to impact us and impact the industry?
Well, I certainly think as a database company, I think the strides, advancements in solid state storage are definitely the thing that is going to affect databases and our business. And I'm pretty excited about the 3D crosspoint memory that Intel's doing. I think that databases are all about persistent storage, and faster storage is going to mean faster databases, and that's pretty exciting about it.
So, but do we just treat it like a faster disk, or is it more kind of fundamental or foundational than that?
At some level, it's a faster disk, but the way semiconductor storage or solid state storage is faster is disks sort of have a transfer rate and an access time. The access time is 0, and so now it's all about transfer rate. And we design databases and file systems and everything assuming that there's a seek time and then a transfer. With solid state storage, there's no seek time anymore. It's transfer rate. So a lot of stuff we design for is big transfers that you may want to, since I'm going to take several milliseconds to seek, I might as well read half a megabyte. There's no need to do that with solid state storage, because reading half a megabyte is just proportionately more than reading a few kilobytes. This is especially true for the 3D crosspoint, that they have really fast access times.
So does that mean David has to have the engineering team ready to rewrite MarkLogic to take advantage of this?
No, I hope not. I think there are we can certainly, it's another design point for that. I think there still is a memory hierarchy. That the fastest memory is your registers, all the way down to your slowest and biggest and cheapest is going to be magnetic memory. But we should really think about how things are different. And I think that there being persistent memory that's really pretty fast, I think we should just kind of stop worrying about that and start worrying about other problems. And that's kind of like, yeah.
And so here's a new technology. It's in some sense a new paradigm in terms of persistence. How is that going to get exposed through the OS? How is it going to get exposed in instances on Azure? How is that going to be made available to people like us who want to use it?
Yeah, I don't really know yet. I think that I certainly think that file systems are a pretty good abstraction for storing things persistently. You pretty much have a hierarchical naming scheme, and you write file. I mean, our phones have file systems. They kind of hide the file system. But so I still think a file system and databases are going to be the way we still deal with persistent storage, principally because it kind of works.
Yeah, yeah. So I tangentially brought up cloud in that discussion. So cloud is another topic. It's future for some people, it's now for other people. From a database perspective, what's the right way for a database vendor to be looking at bringing their technology to the cloud?
Certainly from my point of view, I think clouds are emerging as pretty much a new generation of I think of them as operating system. I remember the days in the 80s, the Unix wars, where each vendor had their own brand of Unix. And you sort of remember, I think the big issue with Oracle is how many different versions of Unix does it run on. I think that's pretty much how we're moving into a cloud era, that cloud systems are, I think of them as operating systems. And in the same way, there are several different versions of Unix. There's several different clouds. So I tend to think of a cloud platform as an operating system platform for running a MarkLogic on. What I kind of I think that's a platform for us to run on. But I really like to focus on what MarkLogic can do as a database. So.
Well, okay. So you made the analogy of the cloud being like the OS.
Yeah.
But cloud vendors now have their own databases. So what do you make of that?
Well, the OSs had their own databases. I think that from my point of view is what I'd like to focus on MarkLogic is kind of the tough database problems, the data integration problems. And I think that databases implemented by cloud vendors tend to be the simplest databases that are simple. I want to put something in there. I want to retrieve it by name. I don't really see a cloud vendor going after the taking an approach that we're taking and going after tough database problems. I do see that they're kind of doing the same thing that a lot of the open source databases are doing. So I really, if you buy a really simple open source database, how different is that to a really simple cloud database? So I can sort of see that they're really kind of going after the same problem, and we're not really looking for that really simple, cheap and dirty approach. We're really looking at something that can kind of solve the tough problems.
And are you hearing, Gary mentioned this in his keynote, the notion of cloud neutrality and being concerned about being locked into a particular cloud or being locked out of running on premise. Are you hearing that from customers as well?
Yeah, I'm hearing that, and I think it's something to be aware of. I think that if you pick a cloud database, you're pretty much picking a vendor. There's no open cloud database protocol. You're pretty much picking a vendor. What we try to do at MarkLogic is we really try to get open standard interfaces and do really good implementations of them so that it's easy to move to MarkLogic. It's easy to move around. So we're not inventing a whole lot of new interfaces. We try to invent new capabilities layered on top of them, but we try to stick to open interfaces. I think the same kind of issues that we're having to do with vendor neutrality on operating systems is really the same issue with cloud. If you really become dependent upon a cloud vendor, you're really going to be dependent upon them. And is that really where you want to be?
So one of the questions I get back when I'm talking about cloud neutrality is, so if you're cloud neutral, does that mean you're not taking advantage of the specific capabilities of particular clouds? So let me ask that to you and hear your...
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that if the cloud vendor does have a unique capability That's pretty. One example is Amazon S3 is we use that for backups. I think that is a good. It has its weird idiosyncrasies, but I think it's a pretty good technology for backups. But fundamentally, that's object storage, and I think that the variety, and it's based on HTTP. So at some level, being locked in there. Conceptually, I think, we're at an early stage here with cloud, and it's like operating systems again, that capabilities are coming out. But I do believe over time that things, they'll all be the same, so pretty much.
So one of the issues or questions that always comes up whenever we're talking about cloud is security. Am I going to be secure in the cloud? What workloads can I move in the cloud? And obviously, over the last couple of days, we've spent a lot of time talking about security. So what's your take on kind of the class of workloads now that can move to the cloud and the kinds of technologies that are going to enable security both in the cloud and on premises?
Yeah, I think this was a big driver. The cloud security was a big driver for our encryption at rest feature that we added to MarkLogic. Because now you can, with the encryption at rest, you can store backups, you can run in the cloud, and all it is if someone gets access to your data, it's just encrypted data that you separate out the keys, you have your keys. So a big push for why we did our encryption at rest is so you can feel comfortable running in the cloud. So I actually would think that makes it a lot easier to run in the cloud. You really don't have to worry about someone stealing your data now. They'll just steal a bunch of random bits.
Yeah. I don't know. I know a lot of you mentioned that you went to sessions that talked about encryption and redaction. I'm sure you also heard about our advanced encryption capability. But I think what this team has done with our encryption capability in MarkLogic 9 is really amazing. This is not a checkbox, we've got encryption kind of activity. This is a really deeply engineered system that takes into account not just, hey, we're taking these bits and we're using some off-the-shelf encryption algorithm to encrypt and decrypt the data. Tremendous amount of thought went into key management. And key management is what, ultimately, that's what makes your encryption system secure. If somebody gets your keys, then the encryption algorithm is useless because they can just use your key and decrypt. And you and the team built a technology where, we really limit the exposure to key management issues. We limit them temporally because of the faster key rotation. We limit them sort of spatially by encrypting lots of different pieces of information with lots of different keys. And that, to me, is one of the things that I think as you all are evaluating your move to the cloud and thinking about what you can do with technologies like our encryption technology, take a deep look at it because it really is something special and it is something that is going to provide deep security for your data in the cloud or on premise. It's important on premise too because of the insider threat.
Yeah.
Those rogue system administrators or people who break in and somehow get system administrator level access. So the other piece of the security thing that I always talk about is that it's really about more sharing with less risk. And that kind of gets to encryption and element level security. And this is one of the neat things about working with Christopher is that he will tell you for the longest time and convince you that something is impossible. Let me tell you the 10 reasons why we will never do this, we can't do this, it's not feasible to do this, it will be too slow to do this. And he convinces me because he's smarter than me. and then we find out that there's a incredibly compelling customer need to solve that problem. And I bring it up or it comes up to Chris directly and he comes back and says, I know how to do it.
Yeah.
And element level security was one of those things. Christopher told me for the longest time why we were not going to be able to implement element level security. And again, he convinced me that we would not be able to do it until we realized that we really needed to do it because of the use cases that we've been talking about. So what did we do to make a technology like that possible?
We did a lot of work. I think Haitao and the team are all here. I'll just tell you, it's hard. And people know me when I say it's hard, that usually means it's impossible. But what we're really trying to do is if you're familiar with MarkLogic's security, the way we have document security as a database, if you're not allowed to see a document, you're not allowed to know it exists. I mean, literally, you cannot know a document exists by querying. It's not like this document exists that you're not allowed to see. It's like, no, there's no document. And if you do a search, it won't match. So we wanted to do that for element level security. If you're not allowed to know a particular element in an XML document exists, you should not be allowed to know that element exists. You can't search for it. You can't build a lexicon on it and do lexicon queries. You can't. There's a whole list of things. We had this long list. So yeah, it was a lot of work. And there is a bit of, it's not free. It's not without a cost. But I think it's really pretty cool that it's relatively transparent. You can define a path in your documents and say, put permissions on it, and MarkLogic will take care of, if you don't have permission to see that element, you will not know that element exists.
Yeah, that's very cool. Yeah. And for Chris, impossible is just an infinite amount of hard.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's kind of back up again. Looking at the future more expansively, where do you see the whole database industry going? What should we be expecting?
I think we're seeing a little bit with David's talk here. What we keep seeing with MarkLogic is I think the purpose of a database is to make to make it easier to get your job done if your job is managing data and extracting value from data. In the future, it's databases getting smarter, the notion of a smart database. I am less concerned. We're plenty fast, but I really don't think your primary criterion for a database should be speeds and feeds. It's not. It's what it can do, not how fast it can do it. Because we can do what we can do fast, but we focused on things, making the project you're working on go fast. And so we're really interested in databases that will ultimately understand data, turn data into information, turn data into knowledge, not just storing and retrieving something.
Right, and I like the idea that you have to kind of think about what dimension of fast you care about.
Yeah.
For a lot of the, for most of the history of the database, it's been about, can I get another 0.5% out of this query speed? And a lot of times when we're talking to customers, it's about how do I get this project done in 6 months rather than 2.5 years. Yeah. That's the fast that they care about, and how do I keep the evolution of it going?
But I'll interrupt you here. But I do spend I do spend a lot of my time on fast, on being fast. I think there's a big chunk of my day that is spent making MarkLogic faster.
Oh, so you just reminded me of something. I'm going to make a detour. I'll come back to this topic. 3 times so far in this conference, people have asked me, so what does Christopher actually do at MarkLogic? So is your founder still involved? Does he still code? What does he, how does he spend his day? So what do you do, Chris?
Okay, okay. This will be a long answer. To really let you know, I am the first one into the office. I can say that with confidence because I turn the lights on. There's I don't do that just to do that. We're offices in the Bay Area on the peninsula, and I don't live on the peninsula. I live over in the East Bay, and those familiar with the Bay Area know that anything on the other side of a bridge is a pretty bad commute. So my solution to that is I shift my hours. I'm in the office at 5 o'clock in the morning, and it's great. The traffic is really light at 5 o'clock in the morning. So I get in and I make a little English muffin, and everybody in the office knows what I'm talking about. Anyway, so we have build cycle. We have this automatic build cycle that the server is all. There's always a new version of the server getting built every 3 hours, and so there's this build that happens at 6 in the morning. So one thing I try to do is I always try to get a bug fixed or a check-in by 6 o'clock, because that way I'm the only check-in, so if there's anything wrong with the build. So usually I come in at 5 o'clock and I either answer an email. People at MarkLogic are very aware of this. Or I'm checking in something, trying to make the 6 o'clock. Then I have breakfast. But so I'm in, I'm working on a bug, fixing the bug, making the server go faster. Usually the performance bugs get to me. And then working on that. Around 8 or 9 o'clock, that's when other people start showing up. I start having meetings. And so probably 9, 10, 11 our meetings, talking to people about what we're working on. With all the main engineering projects is we have several I like to meet people every day. We have weekly team meetings, meetings up all on in the morning, and come around afternoon, 1 or 2 in the afternoon. I'm itching to go home. I can already see the traffic picking up. And so some people who schedule meetings for me at 2 o'clock.
All right, he's talking about me.
Really bother me. But there's this little thing on Outlook you can say, you can block out time. I constantly make it earlier and earlier in the day. So I go home, but I'm not done. When I go home, then it's emails. No, I am busy every day, and certainly the engineering team are really pretty aware of that. That anyone can come to my office and talk about stuff, and I'm working on product every day, working on new features and fixing bugs. I read support email, so. I want to tell you here is when you send an email to support and you're interacting, I'm lurking. I lurk in support email. And so many times when support tells you something, it's coming from me. Most of the time when support tells you something, they'll know exactly what I mean. That, the thing I just told you 10 minutes ago, I was wrong. It's really this other thing. What happened in those 10 minutes is I sent them a note saying wrong. And this is really what's going on. Anyway, so know that when you're talking to support, you're actually getting me, and you're getting other engineers. It's not just me. It's many of the engineers are reading support cases and helping out support answer them.
As is David. It's very common for lots of people in the team to be watching the support queue. Yeah. So. Okay, so now that we know what you do, let's go back. You mentioned the term smart database or smarter database. What do you mean by that?
I think that it's about actually we like to be able to move from a database just storing structured, there's a field of this name of this type. I really want to move to the point with we've been working on semantics is really trying to build knowledge networks out of data so that data isn't just bits. It's actually the information and the knowledge that runs a lot of companies. And we really want to be, as a database company, I really want to be to that point where you're storing in the computer the bits that really run your company on. And so you want the computer to do more than just manipulate bits. You want the computer to actually help you understand what's in there and perhaps tell you things that you didn't even know to ask.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think now I'll cut it off for a moment. I have like 3 more pages of topics, but
Yeah.
let's get the audience in the discussion. So we have some microphones available in the room because we're recording this. So if you have a question, if you raise your hand, there we go, run right in the back.
Yeah, okay.
So my question is that after having this exposure for 3-4 days with MarkLogic workshops and conferences, meetings, it looks like the code complexity using JavaScript or XQuery, or if you are in the framework is trying to harmonize the data, you have to pick up this skill of either JavaScript of XQuery, and then you have to do via that to make the life easier because let us say I'm trying to harmonize and trying to set up relationships between entities and my, or trying to create those relations in data which are changing all the time. And business knows this better than a developer. So if you ask the business, the developer has to get they have to work together. So can you hide that complexity of code and provide some sort of a graphical user interface or something that they can actually create those using the click and drag and drop rather than having to write and do a low-level programming?
Yeah.
Just so you know, in the 20 minutes before this started, he and I were talking about that very issue.
That's a really good idea. And we're working on that. I think that we have some pretty good people in the company, not necessarily in the server team, but in the field who are really good at building tools and applications. We really need to leverage that and provide a lot more tools kind of as part of the product. We have a lot of tools that we provide open source and also that the field uses. I agree. We need to make that all part of the solution, the product as you get it. And Joe, you may have.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think that's what you're saying is something that we're hearing consistently. I think that if you take a look at the Data Hub framework, have any of you heard of the Data Hub framework? Yeah, great. So the Data Hub framework is this open source framework that was created really as a partnership between our field organization, who keeps building data hubs over and over and over again and knows the patterns behind them, and the product team to kind of enshrine those patterns in this framework. And it's great for a lot of reasons, but one of the reasons is that it addresses part of what you're talking about. Instead of having sort of a blank slate, it gives you this framework that knows that you're going to have an ingestion phase into a staging area, and it knows that you're going to go through a harmonization phase across different versions of physical representations of your entities. And it gives you places, rather than sort of starting from scratch, it gives you places where you can plug in very specific pieces of code to do what's required and what's custom for your data hub. That's a step in the right direction in terms of minimizing or decreasing that complexity, but it still requires code. So, some of the things we're looking at is how do we expand on that data hub framework concept and start putting tools around it and having a whole workbench of data tools so that you can define some of those things more graphically rather than doing them in code. So that is something that we're actively working on with the Data Hub framework and exploring the right way to expose that in tooling. Okay, more questions. Run right here, towards the front here. Oh, there's one back.
Oh, you got one?
Okay.
Sorry, it's a little bit dark.
Sorry, didn't see you.
This is for Christopher. So when you do performance testing, do you do it on a commodity hardware or a sophisticated SSD, or both?
That's a good question. I don't know. Are we doing this?
We do both.
I'm not the expert here. We have perf machines. We call them perf machines. And I believe they are not SSD. Correct me if they are SSD now. Generally, when I test things, I test it on my workstation, which is a commodity. It's sort of funny. I realized I was running TPCH on my workstation, and I kind of realized I'm running TPCH on my workstation. It was not designed to run on a workstation, but then I realized my workstation has 64 gigs of memory and 2 terabytes of disk. Think about it. I mean, just a few years back, I'm running TPCH on a computer under my desk that's got 64 gigs of memory in it and 2 terabytes of disk. So what is a high performance machine now? That's what I run on. But we do test on SSD to basically say what's the fastest we can do. But we also test. We test on Amazon with EBS drives, because we need to know that performance as well. So we do test on a variety of things. Usually, if you need capacity, if you still want to get kind of off-the-shelf capacity, you're going to get magnetic storage. And so we definitely test performance on magnetic storage on that. But then, a lot of stuff, EBS, you're going over the network. So we want to test on that, too. So we do a bunch. We do the high end, but we also do the ordinary.
Okay, we have a couple up here.
So are you planning to, it's a two-part question, are you planning to improve the capability of MarkLogic to manage a knowledge graph? And the second half, are you planning to add to MarkLogic sort of built-in capability for information extraction, the entities and relationships, and fill that knowledge graph with low-level data?
Short answer, yes. But the longer answer is a lot of what we try to do is figure out what we can get the most leverage from, and with using the triple index, we've been focusing in the last few releases about extracting triples, being able to get semantic information. Definitely, I think we're going to be looking for more areas of that. I think that's one of the most leverage, the best way to get leverage towards a smart database is being able to extract knowledge and represent it in triples, and then be able to use queries on that. That's definitely a direction we're going at. I mean, you can sort of see that already in MarkLogic 9. What we did in MarkLogic 9 is we are leveraging triples as a way of implementing rows. Basically, running a relational model on top of our triple store, because we can do some really cool, even more powerful things than a typical relational database can do. So we're kind of emulating a relational database with a triple store, which is kind of the complete opposite of what a lot of database vendors doing triples but anyway. So we're definitely looking at how we can leverage a distributed kind of network database in MarkLogic. Definitely, yeah.
Okay.
Hi, I have two questions.
Yeah.
The first one is, we have lots of content in MarkLogic, millions, hundreds of millions, right?
Yeah.
Are there plans to add natural language processing? Because it seems to be a natural extension. You have the content, you add another capability to it that will provide will enable additional use case.
There could be. I think the best way to influence that is to actually talk to our product management and say it would be really cool if there were plans. Our strategy so far has been to make it easy for natural language products to basically use them on MarkLogic and to once again is that from your data is extract triples from the natural languages to be able to turn information in natural language into a triple representation. Whether we have, I don't think we have specific plans right now, but you can influence that by telling product management you would like that. So, yeah. Yeah.
So my second question is, I've been into this kind of chats for the last 6 years.
Yeah.
I've been using MarkLogic for as long.
Oh.
I've seen tremendous growth in that, lots of functionality being added in the past. But looking into the future, what worries you the most?
Yes, Chris, what worries you the most?
That's actually one of Joe's questions. What do we want to? Do anyone want to ask that honestly or not? I think we're actually in an era. There's a lot of change happening, and it's really a pretty exciting era to be in the database business. I think a lot of the traditional database players may disagree with that. I don't really see the traditional large relational database players doing anything. I mean, as far as I know, they're doing this cash cow kind of thing. They're just trying to soak their customers without making any investments. And that's not at all what our strategy is I actually think there's a lot going on. And I don't know exactly what it is that's going on, but the shortest answer is the biggest risk to MarkLogic and to any database vendor is to wake up one day and to find themselves irrelevant. I think that if you're not trying to push technology, if you're not trying to figure out what's the best thing to build, what do we want to be in 5 years, we need to be thinking now about that. So things that I worry about. AI, I think that we're building as much as we can into a smart database. We need to figure out what all this stuff happening in AI, how can that apply to databases? I'm thinking about that. Cloud, I think that a lot of the open source database vendors need to worry about cloud. I think that I'm less worried about cloud because we have a powerful offering, but we need to work in the cloud. That's definitely the areas that we're going at. But I like coming in every day because I really feel that a lot of my competition is just, they're not worried about what they should be worried about. So I actually feel like we're the people sneaking up on them. And so the risks that I'm looking at is who's sneaking up on me. And so we try to be as aggressive as possible with new technology in our releases, mainly to stay relevant, because I think that's the way to stay relevant is to actually do new stuff, do new powerful stuff that try to think of stuff that nobody else has thought of. That's what I like to do, and that's kind of our strategy.
Yeah, and I have to say I really agree with that. And the place where those new ideas come from is from you. So if you look at amazing capabilities in our product, by temp, semantics, on and on and on. The motivation for doing those was sitting with customers and talking about the problems they're trying to solve. And that's what drove the innovation out of Chris and David and their teams to build these technologies. And so it's really important for us to continue those conversations. And I'm looking out and I see Mike Bowers over there, and Mike is one of the, I would say, foremost authorities on MarkLogic, one of our great customers. And I often say that Mike is living in the future because he uses MarkLogic in ways that we haven't even thought of yet. And it's great to work with him and his team because they help us understand where they're going and what they want to be able to get out of the product, and that helps inform the roadmap and keeps us moving and advancing. And I see we're out of time, so I want to wrap it up, and I just want to, on that same theme, I've said over and over again, MarkLogic 9 is it's the most ambitious release that we've ever done. It's an incredibly big, functional, capable, it's just an awesome release. And I just want to thank the engineering team, some of whom are out here, and the product management team, some of whom are out here, for making it possible. It's been a long haul to make it happen, and these folks have worked really, really hard on this, building the kinds of things that you've been telling us are important. So I'd just like to give them a round of applause. Okay. So with that, we will invite Ken back, and we will make our exit.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so there's one thing that I almost forgot to do last year that I'm not going to forget to do this year. It's going to be the first thing that I ask you to do. So we just thanked the engineers for what they do for MarkLogic, but this event, we owe some thanks to, well, at least us at MarkLogic owe some thanks to 2 people and then hundreds of other people. So there's Wendy and Andy over there who coordinated this whole thing. So please give us a round of applause. And I'll cut it off at those 2, but there are dozens of people who helped make this happen. Okay, so we're winding down. We'd ask of you to please fill out the conference survey. Much like our product, tell us what you like, don't like, what you'd like to see about the conference itself. So please do that. We got the mobile app, so it's digital now. That's really good. And get it to us maybe on the plane ride home or tonight, as the memories are still fresh. What's next? Okay, so you got some homework. Get started with MarkLogic 9. It's GA. Okay, there's no gating. Just get it, download it, put it on your laptop or on your very large workstation in the case of Christopher, and get started on that. And then if you're confused or if there's a session that you missed, unless you could time travel, you couldn't see personally all the sessions. So definitely check out the videos. We're going to have them online and continue to connect with each other. This app goes on throughout the whole series of MarkLogic World events. So find folks who you may have heard have similar use cases to yours, or if they're in a similar industry and you want to know what they've been doing, by all means connect with each other. And that helps you and that helps us as well. And then, if you have colleagues overseas, there are 2 more events coming from MarkLogic World. In Tokyo, June 1st, so if you've got, most of the organizations here are global, and you invariably have locations overseas, so talk to your colleagues in Asia and in Europe and see if you can't get them to MarkLogic World Tokyo and London. And start thinking about next year as well, right? It goes by, really, really quickly. So we already have the date set aside. We're going back to the Bay Area. Christopher will be there at 5 a.m. turning on the lights, making English muffins for everybody. It's going to be great. So May 8th and 9th, MarkLogic World 2018. And then the last thing to do is to thank all of you. You guys are what make this possible, really, and we hope you enjoyed it. We certainly enjoyed having you. Thank you very much.